Welcome to Week 10 of the NFL and our special DraftKings Show edition, where we give you the lineups that give you the edge in all of your cash games. All that coming up next. I like Mitchell Trubisky, and let's click on him for a second. Now, let's just review for a second. What's he done recently? Well, what he's done recently is this guy has been a top 5 fantasy quarterback over the last 5 games, and that includes a Buffalo game where they needed him to do absolutely nothing. So what happened before that? Well, they show the 3 games before that here, and if you take a look, he not only gets you yardage in the air, which I'm scrolling on there, and multiple touchdowns per game, but he also gets it on the ground too. So look at the rushing, 51, 81, 47. This is what you can expect from Trubisky in a game where Chicago needs to score. Now, they didn't do it because in week 9, that's last week, he was playing Buffalo. And the defense scored 2 touchdowns. They were up 21 points early. They needed nothing from Trubisky. That became the Jordan Howard show. But other than that, you can see why it is that Mr. Trubisky is so good. He gets you through the air. He gets you through the ground. That Matt Nagy offense is really catching on. And you can tell he's only 5,600, right? So that's a huge bargain for a top 5 fantasy quarterback.
Do you see this as a high-scoring game?
Against Detroit? Yeah, because, Detroit's offense, it's not quite as good as people expected it to be, but it's certainly in the top half. They're a run-and-gut offense, and frankly, they have almost no defense over there in Detroit.
Detroit has to stay in the game for Trubisky. You cannot have this situation like a Buffalo, but I think if it is a high-scoring game on both sides, I think Trubisky can have a big game.
Now, let's take a look at running backs here, and I am going to scroll right up to the top because, Eric, you and I share the same philosophy. If you're going to pay up in DraftKings, same as FanDuel, the running back is probably the best position to do it because the drop-off at running back, from a statistical standpoint, is bigger than at any other position. And, Eric, there are a couple here that I really like simply based on matchups. You can't deny that Todd Gurley is an incredible talent, but from a matchup standpoint, look at Melvin Gordon. I love this. So you can see, I'm going to click on matchup for a second. Look, 32nd ranked rushing defense, and the Chargers versus the Oakland Raiders, you can do anything on the Oakland. You can pass, you can rush, you can walk on the moon. It doesn't matter. This game by halftime, they're going to be up by double digits at a minimum. I think this is going to be Melvin Gordon early and often.
They really don't have a problem feeding him when they get ahead. And the Raiders defense, very susceptible to the rush.
Yeah, so I think Melvin Gordon is a lock to earn his keep. Similarly, if you take a look at Alvin Kamara. Now, Kamara and Gordon are, for the entire season, have the 2nd and 3rd most fantasy points for running backs. First, if you discount Todd Gurley. So, if you take a look at Kamara, again, look at the matchup. He not only has the 2nd most points of any running back, but he faces the 26th worst rush defense and the 32nd worst pass defense. And, of course, Kamara catches more passes than any running back in the NFL. It's just a fantastic matchup.
To me, the great thing about Alvin Kamara now is he's taken over on goal line carries in the Saints. A couple of weeks ago, we would have expected that to be Mark Ingram's zone, but it's Kamara. He's not only is he getting touchdowns, he's getting the short touchdowns, the 1- and 2-yard plunges around the goal line, and that increases his value tremendously.
Absolutely. What I think they've realized over there in New Orleans is he's got nearly as much power as Ingram because they weigh the same amount. They're both 215 pounds. Right, so he's got similar amount of power, but he's got so much more lateral movement and so much more burst that he can do so many things around the goal line.
Yeah. So, all right, we've got a pair of two dynamic running backs between Kamara and Gordon. I think it's a good idea to pay up a running back when you don't have a situation where there's an injury and a guy is mispriced because he's going to take over. And we really didn't have that here, so our option is to pay up.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the drop-off talent-wise statistically at running back is much more than any other position. So that's the position that you if you're going to pay up for a position, it's typically going to be at running back. So wide receivers, got to save money somewhere. And here again, either via injury or via shutdown quarterback for the number 1 receiver, you can find some opportunities. And right off the bat, now I'm going to come back to some of these higher-priced receivers, Eric, but I want to search. And the player I want to search for is Sammy Watkins. Why would I do that? Because again, when you want to seek opportunity for wide receivers, you've got a wide receiver here. He's the second wide receiver on the Chiefs, Tyreek Hill, but Tyreek Hill will be shadowed by Patrick Peterson. And Patrick Peterson is one of the best shutdown or shadow corners in the game. He'll be shadowing Tyreek Hill all game long. That leaves Sammy Watkins on their number 2, and no team allows more fantasy points to wide receiver 2s and 3s than the Arizona Cardinals. It's a great setup for Sammy Watkins. He does have a foot injury. You got to be a little careful, right? We got to make sure that Sammy Watkins is healthy. But you can see, look, against Denver, right, with one shot down corner, what does a wide receiver 2 do? He gets 107 yards and 2 touchdowns. Okay, now if we scroll down with other games with a top-notch cornerback, you can see similar stats, right? Where he gets multiple targets, in this case 9, he gets over 100 yards, and he gets the red zone. I'm looking for that same sort of game for him against Arizona. So I think Sammy Watkins is going to be a huge value. So we're going to go ahead and pick him.
I like that, but like you said, we're filming this on Wednesday. You gotta check your late breaking news whether he actually is going to play. Where are we going elsewhere in wide receiver?
Well, I'll tell you, for a similar reason, kind of a one-off, you want a wide receiver 2 or 3. Cincinnati Bengals, A.J. Green is injured. So what does that mean? That means 10-plus targets per game is up for grabs. Now, you might think to yourself, Tyler Boyd, because he's now going to be the wide receiver 1 for at least the next couple of weeks on Cincinnati. The problem with that is Tyler Boyd has nearly hit his ceiling already. Tyler Boyd is already getting over 8 targets per game. There's not much more room for improvement there. The guy where there's room for improvement is John Ross. Bear in mind one thing. Less than 2 years ago, he was the number 8th overall draft pick, first wide receiver off the board. So you got to figure he's got huge upside. Now, at only $3,900 with 10-plus targets up for grabs, and only maybe a few of them are going to be sucked up by Boyd because, again, he's already sitting at 8 targets per game. They got to go somewhere. You got Eifert out, so it's not going to be at the tight end position. You got to use him. But where else are they going to go? Mixon already has 5-plus targets per game, between 5 and 6. Even the best running backs only get 7 targets per game, so it's not going to be Mixon. It almost by default has to be John Ross, and sitting there at over $3,900 per game. And just to make the point, if you look at the matchup, right, it's passing defense 31st. New Orleans has the 31st ranked passing defense. So he's got a great matchup. He's got a higher ceiling than he's ever had in his career. I look for him to potentially have a big game.
And if you're worried about his health, don't worry about his health. He missed week 8, but they had the Bengals had a bye in week 9, and it was a growing injury, but he's practicing already this week. So he should be good to go, and they need him since they don't have A.J. Green.
So finally, Eric, we've got some money now that we've saved on 2 of the wide receivers. I think you pay up for Michael Thomas. Why do you pay up for Michael Thomas? Well, for the simple reason that statistically, if your name isn't Adam Thielen, Michael Thomas has had a better year than any other wide receiver position. And you look at this. Again, passing defense. You'll love the fact that he's going against Cincinnati. Boy, that 32nd ranked defense is it's a dream matchup for Michael Thomas. He is having such a stellar year with that. And, I realize that we're paying up for him, but Eric, at $8,100, he's been $8,900 previously in the past.
Yeah.
So again, we're getting a little bit of a bargain for Michael Thomas with the best matchup he's going to see all year. I like this guy a lot, so we're going to go ahead and pick him.
Yeah, and more importantly, Drew Brees likes him. I mean, you look at the targets that he receives on a game-by-game basis. It's truly amazing. The Saints, just before we aired, signed Des Bryant, but that's not going to affect Michael Thomas in the least.
Yeah, not fantasy relevant. Now we go to tight ends, and you can see here remaining salary $9,300. So now we're gonna start to get a little frugal. Okay, so who do we want? Well, you know what? Let's take advantage of injuries, shall we? Charles Clay, you never want to wish that on anybody, but Charles Clay's out, and Charles Clay's not going to play. What does that mean? That means somebody is going to get about 5 targets per game. Who's it going to be? Well, it's going to be a guy named Jason Kroom.
If you can take advantage of a situation in some way, it's your duty as an American to do it.
Yeah, so we're going to take advantage of that.
He's not priced like it. He's only $2,500, Eric. That is massively cheap for a guy who's going to be a tight end one and get 5 targets per game. I'm going to go ahead and click on Jason Kroom.
That's a deep sleeper.
Deep sleeper. Let's go to defense, and I got to take this off. Give me a second. So now let's go back to defense. And you know what, Eric? There's a lot of good defenses out here that we could choose from. But I'm going to go down to Indianapolis versus Jacksonville because Jacksonville has been a mess. They have been a mess on offense all season. You can see opposed ranked 29th. Why? Because Blake Bortles has thrown more interceptions than he has in his entire career. And Eric, that is saying something. And the Cincinnati offense just hasn't moved the ball at any point. They've had one good game all year. So, Eric, I love the fact that the Colts have been a surprisingly good defense.
You mean Jacksonville when you said Cincinnati.
Sorry.
Indianapolis is playing Jacksonville.
But Jacksonville, they moved the ball one game all year. Blake Bortles has thrown more interceptions than ever before, and the Colts has been a surprisingly good defense. I'm not sure why they're only $2,800, but it is a great value. It's a great opportunity for us to save some money.
Yeah, that is a good bargain. I'm going to go back tight end for a second because for some reason it didn't select Kroom, and I really want this to be all filled in on the Sure,
screen.
And while you're doing that and speaking of tight end, at 4,300, we're not going to suck him around our lineup, but he caught my eye, is Jack Doyle. Jack Doyle, as we've talked about in previous videos, is a top 6 tight end. And I know he's playing Jacksonville, which is the only excuse I can think of for him to being so cheap at 4,300. But he's one of it's not like Andrew Luck's going to not throw the ball. The Colts throw the ball, and they will be throwing it a lot to Jack Doyle. So if you want to pay up, if you have the money to pay up at tight end and you don't want to use Kroom, Doyle is an excellent option.
Yeah, and O.J. Howard for the same reason. You know, O.J. Howard is the 3rd most tight end points in football. And they're going against Washington, susceptible against the pass, not susceptible against the run. Potential value.
DraftKings is finally listening to you, Gary. They're finally creeping O.J. Howard up on the price.
So let's quickly go to flex here. And, I'll tell you somebody who's been out all year, and he comes back at just the right time to benefit from tremendous opportunity. And that's a guy named Theo Riddick. Why is there tremendous opportunity? Because Golden Tate's gone. And Theo Riddick is your pass catcher over the middle. You know, Eric, he got one rush last game. Why would you want a running back that rushes once? Well, because this guy gets 8 targets per game. In fact, his ceiling's probably higher than that with Golden Tate gone. They basically use him as the slot receiver. And for a slot receiver, let me just type in the pricing for a second. Theo Riddick, $3,800. That is such a massive value for a guy who can be a slot receiver for you.
And remember, we're on DraftKings, where you get 1 point for reception. So he becomes really valuable. And with all the turmoil in the Detroit running back situation, with Kerryon Johnson being established as the lead back, and with Blount getting short carries, the one thing that is always been the case is the pass catching back is Theo Riddick. So now that he's back, he will resume that role.
Yeah, and don't worry about the 3rd-ranked rushing defense. That's not what you're worried about. It's the pass defense. And Chicago's pass defense is just about average. So it's not something you need to be particularly worried about. And this guy is going to be one heck of a value catching 8 passes over the middle against Chicago with the possibility of a touchdown. So let's go ahead and hit draft player. So you can see now we got $200 remaining, but I really like our lineup. I think we have tremendous value here and tremendous upside with not only some high-profile players, but some excellent bargains at some of the positions with real opportunity.
We love to hear what you think of our new format of our DraftKings video, where we go in and actually go through the lineup. And if you're a new viewer, please go ahead and hit the red subscribe button and then the bell icon to be notified of future videos. Until our next video, we'll see you next time.
See you then.